Welcome to our Game Changer series, first series of many. And again, you're joining us here with Working Solutions. And just to give you just a big context of why we're doing this, this is really came about just as a need we see more in our community that it's important for us to continue to amplify the work of many leaders on, I would call unsung heroes and sheroes that are doing, moving the needle forward in so many critical ways that's needed. And we really wanted this to be a conversation. And so we're excited to delve into this conversation today. But before I pass it on, I want to quickly introduce our moderator, Anita Russell. Anita Russell is Working Solutions Community Development Manager. It's quite a pleasure to work with her on our team. I would call her a trailblazer and a committed, passionate community development leader who's really strives to continue to just connect the dots as she's in the community and really highlight opportunities for us to really support and bring more financial justice to entrepreneurs that we're serving. And so you'll hear more about Working Solutions through her and also connect also more with Jahmeer today. So I'm going to pass the floor. Please join me and welcome Anita Russell, our moderator for today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, TT, for the introduction. And we want to thank each of you. Welcome to Working Solutions CDFI. In celebration of Black History Month, we are proud to present to you our Game Changer series. You know, as TT mentioned, aspiring entrepreneurs often face barriers with systems that are built to serve some and exclude others. Working Solutions CDFI is launching our Game Changer series to highlight how CDFIs and other organizations are using innovative models to cultivate collaborative ecosystems and move the needle for businesses and communities. Today, we are proud to have with us a game changer, someone who started his journey in Trenton, New Jersey, to traveling many parts of the world, sharing ideas and creating models around social innovation. His organization, Marin County Cooperation Team, received the Distinguished Echoing Green Award. This is a global honor recognizing outstanding achievements in social innovation. This award has also been granted to Van Jones, as many of you know, and Lady Michelle Obama. They're also recipients. Before we have our chat with Jahmeer, I want to talk a little bit about Working Solutions for those of you who may not know about us or what we do. And so just give us a moment to bring up our deck so you can kind of read along with us what it is we are in the community doing and how we are impacting positively small business owners. So we are Working Solutions CDFI, and our motto is, our mantra, the first to believe in small businesses. We're a small business lender, and our terms start at $5,000 and our ceiling is $100,000. I'm really proud of that because within the last couple of years, we've expanded our loan amounts. We are definitely a mission-driven nonprofit specializing in startups or microloans to startups and early-stage entrepreneurs. We offer free business consulting services for the full term of the loan. We serve 19 counties and we're growing in Northern California. And we are a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution certified by the U.S. Department of the Treasury. So here's our all-time impact. So far, 50 million in grants and loans, 45,000 hours plus in technical assistance. Our average loan amount is 28,000. We have funded 2,800 businesses and growing, and our repayment rate is 95%. Our niche focus, early stage and startups. And our populations are low income, women, and entrepreneurs of color. And here's our service area from Alameda to Yolo and in between. We are here to reach these broad counties to help small businesses with the capital they need. And so our offering is capital and consulting. And if you want to complete a loan application, here are the simple steps. You're going to complete a loan inquiry form, and then after that, we're going to forward the full application. An applicant is going to submit their documents. They're going to return them to us for review. And if all goes well, we're going to funding. To learn more about Working Solutions, you can contact us at Working Solutions or info@workingsolutions.org, our website, workingsolutions.org. And as you can see, these are our media outlets to learn more about us and even follow us. Stay tuned as to what we are doing. Thank you so much, Crystal. All right, Jahmeer, are you ready? You feel
Yes,
like talking? I feel
yeah.
like
Yes, I'm ready.
So listen, thank you so much for being with us today. Our opening just gave a brief intro concerning who you are. Would you mind taking a moment to shed some light on the Marin County Cooperation Team, your role, which is very important, and how this organization has impacted the community?
My name is Jahmeer Reynolds. I'm the founder and executive director of the Marin County Cooperation Team. Initially started out as the Marin City Cooperation Team. Those who know me know I'm very blunt, but I'm very passionate as it pertains to Marin City. So during the pandemic, my job at the time was I was a community school director. March 16th, 2020, Gavin Newsom shut California down. And I actually was sitting in cabinet with my superintendent, director of maintenance and operation. And I said, give me 24 to 48 hours, I'm going to create something. Had this idea, and which was really to become an online community school, but with a strategic focus. And so within about 24 to 48 hours, we created the first ever, to my knowledge, online community school in America. But it was more focused. We had 7 teams for a specific point of impact. So we had a team for seniors, academics. We had a 24-hour crisis hotline, families with infants. Each team had 30 volunteers with a team lead. So that's over 200 people. And at the time, I was the one triaging all of the calls. The way that it will work is you will come to our website, you would pick your team and provide your request. We would respond within 35 to 45 minutes, which at the time was faster than any agency that I knew of. And within a few hours, we were able to get you all of your services at no cost to you. Some of the services we provided, we helped relocate domestic violence victims. As you all know, there was a spike in those incidents because folks were trapped with their abuser. We delivered diapers, laundry detergent. We even did medication pickup and drop off for those who had autoimmune illnesses as well. And what that resulted into was us being recognized by U.S. Congress for innovation. There was nothing like it going on during the pandemic. And what I did was I went to each nonprofit in Marin City and said, what is it that you do great? And let's just be real. The white people ain't coming to help us during this pandemic. They don't even know what's going on. So we need to pull together and create this co-op. And the best way that I describe it is imagine if Amazon provided this service. And that's what it was. We called ourselves the Amazon of comprehensive support services because most nonprofits do one or two things. Well, what if you can make one call, send one email, instead of hunting people down and everything was in-house, from kids coming home from college to having Chromebooks delivered to the homes of the kids who were shut in, and even providing we had a community member whose stove went out but had mobility issues, and I worked together with Miss Ida Green, who is our former school board president, but she was one of the first individuals to become a team lead specifically for the senior team. And so, that really catapulted us because we believe in Ubuntu, which is a Zulu or Hausa saying, meaning I am because we are. And we are partnership first. If you are not a partnership first organization, we might not be for you all. And so I literally created this for Black people in the pandemic because we had to save ourselves.
So tell me, I understand this wonderful model you have. How have you been able to impact other agencies, other communities outside of Marin?
So what we do is we actually help diversify your service provision model. If you only do housing and someone else does mental health, what if you all were in the same house and cut down to one phone call, one intake process? So for those who become a part of our partnership, because currently we have over 50 partners domestically, and we have 16 international partners. And so by becoming a part of this co-op, you lessen the load a lot. Even around data, maybe you don't have the infrastructure, to promote on social media. We have someone in-house for that. If it's around grant writing, if it's about having human capital, to execute, you have access to that. My goal was to create something that shared the burden, but spread the love, so to speak. And I know when I first started, folks really thought like, oh, you only helped Black people, because we started as the Marin City Cooperation Team. But what most people didn't know is there were Ukrainian refugees who made their way to Marin County, and we helped them. There was a wealthy couple in San Anselmo who had medication for a pituitary issue, and we told them, don't worry about it, we got it covered. But as I stated before, we had to come up with a game plan to assist and mitigate even some of the learning loss and food insecurity within Marin City. And so it just flourished out. And we've done work with the Islamic Center of Mill Valley. There's a big Yemeni population here as well. And so, we help our Latino brothers and sisters, but initially this was homegrown and specifically designed for Marin City.
Tell me something. When I was learning more about you and through our conversations, I love your vision and your passion around partnership. Like that's a big thing, and we're going to talk about that a little later. But tell me, how does a guy from Trenton, New Jersey, make his way to Dubai and other parts of the world, creating positive impact? I want to ask, what inspired you to do that? And what did your backpack have to do with any of it?
For the way that I actually made it to Dubai, it all started when I was 18 years old, and my mother, and God bless her soul, my grandmother took me to the train station in Trenton, New Jersey, and I got on a train to go to Shaw University. And I was alone. I knew that I had a bigger purpose, but I was alone, and I was actually scared because I had never traveled to a particular destination alone without someone being there. And the whole ride on the train, I just kept wondering, how can I make it here? And there was a woman on the train named Deborah and her daughter named Tiffany. And she said, hey, young man, like, where are you going? And I told her where I was going. And I said, she said, where are you staying when you get there? I said, I don't know. Remember, I'm 18. And she said, well, we're actually staying in a hotel off South Saunders Street. My daughter is going to the same school as well. And had I not met Deborah and Tiffany on the train, my first night in North Carolina, I would have been sleeping on the streets because I had a Ziploc bag of money and I had one suitcase. I didn't even have bed sheets. I just had a little bit of clothes. And then I woke up and, when it registered myself, Miss Deborah was there. And my first roommate, Mr. Mabry Young, his mom blessed me with blankets and sheets. I can honestly say that I've always had an angel guiding me through this, and he even let me share some of his clothes. And so, fast forward, um, I began to, to work, but I was homeless for a point in time. I was eating out of trash cans. I was still food. I was working at Labor Ready. If any folks on here know what Labor Ready is basically you go to a place and wait for them to give you a manual labor job. And as I told you yesterday, Anita, because I was the young one on the crew had already been working together, so they would divvy up the money and basically steal and short me. And so, I just kept persevering. My brother went to school at St. Aug, and he would let me sneak in his room and sleep in his bed. But I had to get up when he got up. And it was just a lot of ups and downs. And, I found my way. I found my way. And actually, um, I found my way. The person who helped give me my first business or guide me to my first business is Mr. Gerald Parker. Um,
So hang on before you talk about
okay.
Mr. Parker, because what we
Mhm.
don't know is
Mhm.
before you got on that bus, when mom and grandma took you to get on
Mhm.
that bus, can you tell us what life was like prior to that and then tie that in with your backpack?
Oh, sure. Um, for me, I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey. I know we like to be fancy and say housing development. I grew up in Miller Homes Projects, Trenton, New Jersey, 152 Monmouth Street. It was a community within a community. I really didn't know how rough it was because I lived in it and we always looked out for each other. And it was a 3-bedroom house. It was 15 of us. It was 9 kids, 6 adults. No one ever slept in my grandma's room. You better not. Uh, but you know, drugs and violence and everything else. But I always knew that I was built for something greater. I always knew that my life didn't end, on the front porch or around the building that we used to say. I used to have a vision. I used to have my vision was I had a backpack on and I was walking through the airport, but I couldn't look to the left or the right of me, but I knew that I was going somewhere. And that vision happened when I was 12 years old, returning home from a track meet in California. And I had just won a national championship. And I came home and I'm sitting on a bench and I was like, it's my bad, I was 14. I was like, I know life is better than this. Like, I know it is. And I want to go find it. You know, I grew up in, around guns and so many other things that, that the typical inner city youth goes through. But I just knew I wanted better. And even the brothers and sisters around me who were in the streets, they would always tell me, like, Jahmeer, you're so much better than this. And I'm talking about certified killers, tear the world up. Jahmeer, you are so much better than this, and I believe you, and so much more. And so, my within my backpack, you know, it was I carry my purpose around a lot with me. And I never let it leave my side. And that's what got me here. In high school, I was the number one 800-meter runner in the country. I had all of the colleges. Um, but I had a nasty attitude because I was angry at the world and what I was going through. And one of the men in high school, Dr. Daughtry Long, who's actually Nia Long's father, was my English teacher. And he was the first man who really showed me what being an honorable Black man was. And this is a man who went to Columbia. He was affiliated with the Panthers, but he was also a poet. And this man could have went on to live anywhere in the world, but he stayed in a section of Trenton called Wilbur section, which is a rough area as well, and showed up every day. And he asked me one day, "Why are you so angry, son?" He said, "You are an angry, talented young man, and we got to figure out how to break through that anger." And, he passed away. But I'm so thankful for him being in Trenton, New Jersey at Trenton Central High School. My high school had 5,000 kids in it. And 1,000 freshmen came in. And out of those 1,000 freshmen, only 300, I believe 372 of us graduated. So the odds were definitely stacked against me. And I'm not supposed to be on this interview right now.
Well, you know what? I thank you for making it out. I thank you because your impact is so positive. It's actually beautiful, Jahmeer. And I'm so honored to be with you. And I really appreciate Working Solutions for this platform. You talked about that backpack. We shared about the airport. Tell me, how does a guy from Trenton end up in Dubai? And what did you do when you got there?
So, I moved to North Carolina where I stayed for 12 years. During that time, I had my twins, Aiden and Scarlett, who are 18 now. And let me brag for a little bit. Between the two of them, they've been accepted into 68 colleges. And I have an older daughter named Jordan, who lives in Trenton, New Jersey now. But living in North Carolina, I had to find my way. I was working at group homes, and which was arguably the best job I ever had, working with adults and children with developmental disabilities. But I would always hear from the staff, Jahmeer, you're much bigger than this. And that was hard for me to hear in the midst of, because I felt like I was doing such a great job. And I remember transitioning to the school district, and a teacher named Stuart Vickery, he was a special education teacher, and I was a TA in his adjoining class. And every day he would tell me, you're a star. I don't know what it is, but you're a star. And I'm helping the kids with G-tubes and everything else. But he would say, Jahmeer, I don't ever want you to settle. You are much bigger than this. And what happened was, during this time, I met my wife at an event. I am a Kappa, and she's going to hate that I tell this story. So I went to an event, and they were playing musical chairs, the brothers, and I heard somebody say, go ahead, green sweater, you better do it. So, and I introduced myself. She said, are you a Kappa? I said, no, I'm a Noop. And I said, God, this is going to sound so shallow, and I apologize. I don't date a woman if she doesn't have a passport. But I didn't know that I was talking to Carmen Sandiego. My wife had literally been to almost 27 countries before she even met me, and taught all around the world. And I met her that night, and it's 14 years later. And a friend of hers named Khadijah lived in the United Arab Emirates, said they're having a teaching reform here. And I said, well, let's go. I don't have no real ties. I have my twins, and, we were talking about getting married, and then we found out we were pregnant with Khalil. And she went there to take a teaching job. But while I was there, I was working on my master's degree. And remember I told you there's always an angel somewhere lurking around? There was a gentleman who just liked me and said, he asked me, what am I doing and what am I getting my master's degree in? I said, educational management. He said, well, if you get your ESL certificate, I can have a job for you at the local junior college. I had never really met this man. He came on a referral from a friend of mine named Charles because I had good energy. And I wind up teaching the police cadets, part of the Abu Dhabi police force, English and interactions with Westerners. In addition to, like I said, I ran track, and they had a semi-pro football league going on over there. And I couldn't play football in high school because the coaches wouldn't let me, because my focal point was track. So I was like, let me go out for the football team. And I made it. But what I noticed at the practice, remember I said it's an education reform. So to give you a background on the United Arab Emirates, they're nouveau riche. They were pearl divers. So in Dubai, everything that you see is pretty much brand new. But what happened was they discovered oil. They didn't have the machines to extract the oil, but the British did, i.e. British Petroleum. If you extract the oil, if we give you these machines, you got to implement our education system. That's the education reform that happened. And so again, like fast forward, playing football, I see a lot of single African-American mothers over there. And I talked to some of my friends. I said, if I saw a mentor agency for these young Black men, would you be a part of it? My mentors consisted of an executive director, an executive chef for one of the largest hotel chains over there, Mr. Dorian, who is actually the poet laureate of the United Arab Emirates, Mr. Preston, who is a local entertainment guy over there. And I know you guys hear about LeBron James and I Promise, but I Promise existed in Abu Dhabi before LeBron James laid a brick on that school. And what that resulted in was me receiving an International Community Service Award from Zeta Phi Beta Sorority Incorporated. And it was the first ever mentoring agency in the United Arab Emirates created by an African-American man for African-American children. So we literally made history in that country.
Well, and that's just a portion. That's just, you're just giving it to us in a snapshot. I want to hear about this global award, but just put a post-it there. I'll come back to that. So here you are in Dubai and you're doing all of this stuff, but I want to hear about in your 20s. Another angel gave you an opportunity for entrepreneurship. Tell us about that business and what it was like for you to manage staff, as well as handle the ups and downs of business.
Right. Well, Anita, you told me to keep it real, so I am. Prior to giving this business opportunity, I was a pharmaceutical street rep that I actually used that funding to pay for school.
What does that mean? We may not all.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me be clear. I sold drugs. Okay.
Because
To put myself through college. I would literally work it like a 9 to 5. I would have my marketing, I had my logistics, and I would, after every shift, I would go to my room, parse out what I needed to pay the registrar, my books, and everything else. And that following morning, I would have a money order and walk into the registrar's office and pay for college. In my 20s, I was married.
Hang on, because those of us that don't understand, I want you to kind of cut down the judgment. Like, why would somebody do that? Why would you need to sell drugs to pay for college? Like, we all didn't do that. Why'd you do that?
That's what I knew, right? That's what I grew up around. And it's definitely not a judgment on any of my friends or family members, but I didn't really have any work skills, and the money was needed. I didn't have time to wait for a check. Remember, I was homeless. I was hungry. So what do? Do I starve and wait for someone to call me back with this application to only be told I'm overqualified? Or do I play in traffic hoping not to get hit with the goal of is to finally standing on a sidewalk and watching traffic go by? I knew that's not something that was the long game. But when you have a back balance at an HBCU, you are not getting past the registrar's office if you don't settle that debt. And that's why so many of our kids go to these private HBCUs and they drop out or they go somewhere else and they have to start their college career over and over.
And an HBCU is what?
Oh, I'm sorry, a historically Black college or university. And so with that, in my 20s, I got married early, and still trying to figure it out. And I was given an opportunity by Mr. Gerald Parker, and I took notes. And I'm gonna be frank, I don't look up to a lot of men. I just don't. I was raised by strong Black women. My mom was 16. When she got pregnant, my dad was 18, so we're growing up together. They're very few and far between, but it was the strong Black woman in my life. My mother, my Aunt Barbara, who still calls me Judy to this day. My Aunt Valerie, Venus, Ronnie, Crystal. And so, but Mr. Parker had a janitorial service called Champion Janitorial Service, and he was based in New Bern, North Carolina. And he was the first Black man to really introduce me into art and style and how you don't have to yell to get your point across around budgeting, stock market, always thinking of the next steps. And he had a contract with the Rex Hospital System in Greenville, North Carolina. I had never done any janitorial work before, but when I went to his home, I knew that this man knew what he was doing because it was immaculate. And when he took me on a tour of the facilities, I saw the pride that he had with even lacing the trash bin with the garbage bag and how to tie a perfect knot and things like that, and how to back out of a room and once you clean it in. He really taught me about business. He taught me about being a Black man in a business in a white world. I never saw him compromise his integrity for anyone. And so, me not really having any experience, I brought my brother Dallas down to help me run the business. I hired a couple, local kids, and it was hard because he believed in me, but I had a difficult time. Remember, he's moving and shaking and doing everything else, and he's trusting me. And so I fumbled a lot. I fumbled a lot and still trying to find my way, but he never gave up on me. He never chastised me. Everything was a learning experience. And so for Mr. Parker, I don't know if you're on here. I want to say thank you. You literally turned me in, and I can say this, you turned me into the business monster that I am today. And my business journey started with Mr. Gerald Parker.
Thank you for that. In one of your videos, you talked about, which was really intriguing to me, empathy versus sympathy. Mm-hmm. And when we peer through the access to capital lens, a couple of questions. How essential is it for us as lenders to understand the communities we serve? And then what is the common approach, or I should say outcome, when there's no connectivity, when only the boxes are checked?
Most lenders, often when a business comes in and they interview them from an ivory tower, you're not on the ground, so you really don't know the impact of what I could be doing. Mainly, you're basing your experience or your decision based on analytics. And so you have quantitative, but you don't have any qualitative data. And that's not taken into an account. And for especially doing business today in the social justice movement, what I tend to see is folks give money to the loudest people in the room, but if you peek behind the curtain, they're doing the least. And for lenders, you have to become a salesman, but you can't be so aggressive that you scare them off. You have to show that you are fiscally responsible and you have the infrastructure to receive the funding. Your data and your impact reports are up to speed, but you also have a story to tell that is not listed in X's and O's. And for lenders, if you don't even go out and even visit the organization you're thinking about lending to, how can you make a sound judgment? It's like writing a grant and including a community that you've never been to. Why? Because that's attractive to the people who are lending the money. And I know this because I had a conversation with someone who said they wrote a grant for a particular group of people. And I said, well, where'd the money go? Oh, they wouldn't let me in. Well, who did you talk to? But you still got the money. So how can you know who you're investing in if you don't even spend time? No one asks you to go and spend 12 or 13 hours. But why not go see the logistics of it all? Talk to the staff. Find out the people that you're lending to, they have a heartbeat and a pulse. And it's not just this big machine that it looks good when you're at the end of the year and you're just trying to write $10,000 checks to satisfy your taxes. So IRS isn't on your back. You don't even know the people you're writing the checks to or lending to. Or you may be giving to someone for legacy funding. Someone may be in your ear saying, hey, I think you should do this. Well, what do they do? Why should we lend to them? Oh, I've been knowing them for 30 years. But you dig a little deeper, they have nothing to show for 30 years of service. And so this is why I say the lending process has to become more humanistic instead of it just being about numbers.
Wow, let that soak in. So you're talking about competition. I want to ask you, in the highly competitive world of entrepreneurship, speaking from your own experience,
Mhm.
can you share how startups and early phase businesses can position themselves for success? How, and then on the other hand, this is two-part, and how can lenders be more open to giving startups and early stage businesses a chance?
So really getting right down to it, create the business model and execute so you don't have to walk into the room with the hat in your hand. I use my company, for example. For 2 years, we did this work for free.
This for
And
applicants? For applicants or the lender side?
for applicants, show the lender that this thing is going to move with or without you. And you know your worth. And that you're not just going to settle for a micro loan to keep the peace. And that when you go into a lending meeting, that you have all your schematics, you have your financials, you have your 2 to 3 to 4 year projections, you have so many other things that they can't even ask you any questions. Why? Because you came prepared. You have your updated financials. You have people in positions who are qualified to be there. And now you complement that with your story. I am human behind all of this paperwork. I have a story to tell. Here is the data that I have to support the paperwork that you're looking at. And my story is telling you everything that's just not in numbers. It provides color to this application. And as far as the lender, do they have a heartbeat? Do you have an understanding of who's sitting in front of you? Do you understand what it's like to be who I am? The one thing that I do, I run a workshop and I discuss customer service. Oftentimes, applicants are shut down by lenders because the lender brings in their own biases when an applicant walks in. So if you were taught to be racist, and I'll be specific against Black people, and I come in and I have all of these wonderful things, but because you don't even like my skin, I'm already shut down. Or let's say I'm a startup and maybe, and I know we have to dress to impress and things like that, but my business is great. But you know what I can't afford? I can't afford a suit. So I have this polo shirt with these khakis and maybe my shoes are a little run over. But that paperwork is telling you I'm damn good at what I'm at. And how do you provide feedback to your staff? How do you avoid having the staff member who serves as a gatekeeper, and let's say they have a great relationship with you, Anita, and then they bring their own biases in, and the person that you've been working with all this time, You stop hearing from them until one day you're walking down the street in San Francisco and you bump into this person and they're upset with you. This happens all the time in banks and lending institutions and so many other things. I may have a 720, 740 credit score. I don't have 815. But what I do have and what I can show you is how many lives I've impacted and the funds that I've raised outside before ever meeting you. And I'm transparent with my financials. That's what I mean. The applicant and lending process has to go hand in hand, but the applicant also can't give up, because it may come a point in time you may not be ready to receive the blessing that you're asking for. And it's up to you to go back to the drawing board and figure out, how can I change some things in my life to open up this window or door to receive the blessing? Because I know it's there. I know I'm making an impact, but maybe I see a need, and the need is like, you need one or two more things, one or two more things. But because you give up and you feel like the world is against you, and for most of it, the world is against us. But if you serve the God that I serve, no, it doesn't matter if the world against you, if he's for you. And so that's when you lean into your faith. And so each of those things has to go hand in hand.
Thank you for that, sir. Well, listen, earlier you were talking about partnerships.
Mhm.
And so I want to talk about that a little bit more and ask you the question then, how can both the lender and borrower benefit from the ecosystem? Talk to us a little bit about that.
The ecosystem, we're mad at it currently, but the ecosystem is doing exactly what it was designed to do. Now, would you like to be a part of the disruption of the ecosystem and have things equitable? And that's where we have to look in the mirror. Do I want to be a disruptor of change, or just go along to get along? And that's why I say making the lending process more humanistic. And I'm gonna do something simple. Let's say I come into your office and I've had a rough day and it is pretty obvious and I'm thirsty. How many people go into a lender office and they say, are you hungry or do you need something to drink? Is there anything that I can get you before we get down to business? See, that's what I'm talking about. We miss the little things in customer service that can really enhance the relationship. Why? Because number one, we're caught up on, are you right for the lending? As an applicant, I don't know. I don't see nobody who look like me here. I'm so uncomfortable. But what if we break the ice and say, I see you? I'm talking to you, not at you. And from there, and I always use this analogy, the warrior always drinks with a spear or a shield in its hand. But imagine if I'm comfortable enough to lay down my spear and my shield and I can drink with both hands. Now I'm more receptive. And so making it, when you have an appointment, that you do your homework, you understand where they come from. If you have someone, a Black business coming from Marin County, and like I said, I like to speak in specifics, you're 7 to 8 times more likely to be stopped in Marin County than you are in Alabama or Mississippi. Marin County is the third most racially desperate state in California. There are not a lot of Black businesses in this county. Now I'm coming to you across the Golden Gate Bridge and I'm bringing all of that baggage with me. And because as a lender, you might not have done your due diligence and you may just think I'm screwing up. But to be honest, I'm nervous. Why? Because on the other side of the bridge, all I hear is no every day anyway. When I get in my car, my stomach is hurting. I know because I was working at the school and we're in a suit and I got stopped twice. I'm leaving the school. And when I have a business idea, I'm forced to fight against another Black business fill out 14, 17 pages for $1,000. So when I come across the bridge, I'm bringing that with me. How does the lender make it so to where you can have a real conversation? Because your yes is your yes and your no is your no. But you need to get to know the people. And if you say no, are you providing feedback? This is why. Or you just sending people on their way. That's how you change the ecosystem. You make it more humanistic.
And so let me dig a little bit deeper, because you talked a little bit earlier about partnerships.
Mm-hmm.
So why are partnerships important? Why is not working in a vacuum? When I think of partnerships, I realize I can't do this work on my own. That's Working Solutions. We're just not in a box, right? And so when we talk about partnerships, what is that to you and the work you do? Or I
The
should say,
best
why is that
analogy,
important? Why is that important? Excuse me.
the best analogy I could use, imagine when your mom or your grandma pull up and she has groceries. What's the first thing that she does to make her load easier? Y'all come outside and help. You get the groceries in a lot faster. That means you get to eat a lot sooner, right? All because of that little bit of help. The burden is a lot lighter when you have someone walking on the journey with you. When you have someone saying, for your great work, I want you to become a stipend partner, because now you're inspired. But not only are you a stipend partner through this partnership, we're going to create professional development opportunities for you. Because I see that your organization is being held together with spit and duct tape, not because you're not doing great work, but it's because you don't have the infrastructure or the human capital to go forward. So why don't you come over here? We can make it a lot lighter, a lot more proficient, and you will have a partner. I am because we are. Martin Luther King and Stokely Carmichael. Stokely Carmichael believed in Black power. Dr. King in his earlier years said, I don't really, but he still respected Stokely. He understood the fire and the passion. And he said, how do we become partners to continue to move this movement? That's why partnership is important. We're not going to agree on everything, but if the thing that we can agree on is to change the economic trajectory of our people, you can't go wrong. Whatever you're good at, I'm going to facilitate opportunities for you to execute. And I expect the same thing. And even for us in our MOUs, we have specific information on how to post about social media. We are very specific and intentional. And I want to give a great shout out to my number two, Mrs. Mira Guidi, who, along with me, she was an attorney for the city of San Francisco, interviewed me for a law publication and quit her job. And for 2 years, we didn't make any money. But she believed in the vision and in the partnership for us to go forward. And even taking it into your home with my wife, Shakira, she gave me a year. Said, I'm gonna let you find your way. You quitting, school job, I don't know. But she believed in her partner. And I said, just give me a year. And so not only partnership in corporate America, but in your home and in your community.
Jahmeer, thank you for that. I just kind of want to talk to the audience for a minute. In May 2020, the world was confronted with racism in a way it couldn't ignore. George Floyd was not only the teacher, but he was also the student. This moment raised awareness, particularly in the lending industry, and dollars came from everywhere to help those who have always needed help. I wonder why then, and I wonder why not now. I can tell you that Working Solutions, what we do in reaching communities of color, is not done in a vacuum, as I shared a moment ago with Jahmeer. but we are part of amazing partnerships, ecosystems that helps us in the work that we do. It's both interactive and collaborative. In 2020, we were only deploying about 18% of our capital to Black entrepreneurs, and now we have doubled that and more. And it's rising. And our team is committed to creating authentic relationships through the trust building framework. What is that? Let's talk about the 4 C's of trust. Commitment. We're committed to staying in the space to support small businesses. Caring. It is important that our clients and our partners know we care and we're willing to listen. Many applicants have experienced the trauma of being belittled, treated less than, on top of being told no in the most humiliating fashion. Treating people with dignity for Working Solutions is paramount. Consistency, the 3rd C. We need to keep showing up. And then competence, having the ability to educate and again, deliver. Jahmeer, speaking from a funding standpoint, what is it we still don't understand today as it relates to the George Floyd effect?
So I'm a backwards map. All of the money that they said they would give, we still haven't received it yet. Because it sounded good. It raised awareness. And as someone who was abused by the police 3 times by the time he was 17, once at 12, one at 15, one at 17, that hit near and dear to me. The funding became obvious is because now people, they got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. People been getting killed and choked out and beat. But this movie had a world premiere, unfortunately, on the shoulders and at George Floyd expense. And so even funders giving out money to these organizations of color, what happens when you give $1 million to an organization who has only ever had a budget of $60,000? You are dooming them to fail without any technical assistance. They don't know what to do with $1 million, but what you can check off your box and say is, well, at least we gave it to them. But you are contributing to the downfall of nonprofits and other for-profit organizations of color. And so even around this funding, and I always use us for an example. And one year, the Marin County Cooperation Team turned down almost $300,000 because nothing came with that funding that they were offering. And at this time, we only had $20,000 in the bank. But I knew that that funding was attached to a stick of dynamite that was going to cause this thing to implode. And that was over 3 years ago. And if anyone on here has a business, do not be blinded by the funding that you see and get. Mainly in part, that is a blessing, but with that blessing comes responsibility. It's okay to ask for technical assistance when you're receiving funding, especially from a large organization, because you know what that does? That lets them know we're going to be here for a while. And we want to be able to maximize the potential with coming that is attached to this funding. Now, I think they contributed almost $50 billion that they said that they were going to do. But think about how many nonprofits and how many social organizations popped up during George Floyd, and do you hear from them now? Or even the organizations or the people who were marching with signs, who were business owners, who were initial investors, do you hear from them now? More than likely, you don't, because the spotlight has now been shifted to something else. The work has not stopped, but the spotlight and the funding opportunities are drying up. Remember, folks, they're removing the DEI in a lot of corporations around the country. And that's because it's no longer popular. The work still needs to get done, but the world isn't paying attention to it. so we could shift this funding to other things. But for those of you, and I like to reiterate, if you have an opportunity to get a major grant, ask for technical assistance. I believe Working Solutions more than likely offer this technical assistance, and I believe that it'll put a smile on Anita's face to say, hey, Miss Russell, I never had this before. We appreciate you believing in us, but do you mind providing us some tutelage so we don't squander this opportunity? That's what's attractive to funders. Number one, who you're working with, and are you not afraid to ask for help in the pursuit of excellence?
We're going to take some questions, just a few, but I want to speak to that. Working Solutions just doesn't just send you a check. You're not going to be successful like that. We're going to hold your hand. We're going to walk with you. We're going to give you some information you might not have had, all for the purpose of arming you so you can be successful. With that, TT, are there any questions?
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Jahmeer, for setting us up well with such a great insight of just your background. I'm going to, as we wait for some of the questions to pop up, I want to kind of see no questions yet, but if people, I think some folks we're trying to update our back end to make sure people have access to be able to drop the questions in. But I guess maybe I have a question for you. You shared some insight from your background, and as well as just from the vantage point as a leader, and also as from the vantage point as an entrepreneur, and what partnerships really look like. And you really highlighted some great feedback of what, from a lender's perspective, humanistic lending that's needed. And then also from the business side, as entrepreneurs, how do you start building, business model that are resilient and can survive even sometimes without capital? And then partnerships, like, we always think of partnership of just external facing, but then talking about the personal partnerships that also keep you grounded. I think those are really important framing that you shared. Is there any maybe specific examples that you can share around this business model that you've used to build like a business in a way that is just resilient towards the tough times, from both, so that's from a business perspective, and then also community partnership model that you found that has been helpful to also build like resilience just when the fundings are limited.
So first of all, thank you for your question. To my knowledge, I'm the first founder and executive director of a multi-service nonprofit African-American man in Marin County's history. And remember, this is the third most racist county in California. Mm-hmm. So if that's not any resistance, mm-hmm. I don't know what is. In addition to, I had to convince people to believe in what I was doing. But while I was being persuasive, I continued to work and do things for free. I would go without a haircut. I would go without lunch in order to give to the community. I made a promise to Marin City that I would create something that would change the economic trajectory of Marin City. The median income in Marin City is between $54,000 and $76,000 a year. But if you go into the towers, it drops down to $10,000 to $12,000. My whole purpose for creating this organization was to create jobs for the folks that live in Marin City, well-paying jobs and and opportunities. And so even like I said earlier, I did this 2 years for free and no one knew. And I had to endure going into meetings and people talking to my number two, who is a white woman. And she would say, well, let me ask my boss. And she would turn and look to me. I still get that now. Who in the hell does he think he is to come into this space and speak with such authority? but I know the hell and high water I've been through to speak with this authority. I know the promise that I made in 2019 to Marin City that I wouldn't give up and I wouldn't leave, and I will continue to press forward on the behalf of Marin City. And when we go into these spaces, that we are worthy to be here. There are only 6,000 Black people in this county. 3,000 of them are are children, with a county of 250,000 people. There are some school districts in this county that don't even have Black kids in them. So when you talk about resilience and patience and really pioneering, pushing through, that is me every day. And I know folks are waiting for this thing to crumble, but we have been rocking and rolling for the past 4 years. We have went from having a $500,000 budget to being a multi-million-dollar agencies providing both indirect and directly 14 to 15 jobs. And 90% of them are from families connected to families in Marin City. My goal is to have Marin City become a Wakanda. Remember, Wakanda was hidden from the world, but all the technological advances and everything else was right under that shield. And once the world found out what Wakanda was, they came to Wakanda. Wakanda didn't go to them. Mm-hmm. And I believe we have enough talent, perseverance, and love and ingenuity in Marin City where the world can come to us. And so these are the things that I believe in. You know, you have to remember, when I got hired in 2019 to work at the school, they were desegregating a school district. Mm-hmm. It's the first desegregation act in 50 years in the state of California. So the hurdle was always there. But like with all hurdles, you either run over or run through them. But I'm still gonna keep going. So yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Thank you very much. It's quite inspiring. There is a question in the chat that says, is there a site that lists the Black-owned businesses in Marin, and more specifically Marin City?
I just saw the name. What's up, Jeff? Jeff is a congregation member at Hillside Church. That's my guy. We're putting that together. Jeff actually got me one of my first speaking gigs. It's called What's on Your Canvas, where we explore who taught you how to be a racist. And so, yes, we're putting that together now. I'm definitely in talks with Pastor Tompkins and really creating a Black business consortium.
Thank you. That'll be great. And also to add to that, I know Working Solutions, we go across the city, but we across the Bay Area, we have 19 counties that we serve, and we do have a client directory. It's just that you can kind of, that's only limited to Working Solutions client, but it would be great to just align and see other, directories that are out there. No questions, no additional questions at this time. No additional questions right now.
Thank you, TT. For those of you who want to know more about the Marin City Cooperation Team, you can go to Marin County Cooperation and to learn more about Working Solutions, we're at workingsolutions.org. I want to tell us as we wrap up to stay tuned for our next Game Changer with Melissa Bradley, founder of 1863 Ventures. Jahmeer, she understands lending from a ground floor perspective and is sure to provide us all with straightforward insight as an entrepreneur, as an investor, as an academic, and as an advocate. So make sure you're in the room on Tuesday, March 26th at the same time. Before I say goodbye, I want to say two things. The one thing is, I know a lot of times when we talk about racism, and we're very straightforward with it, and some people kind of tense up with that when we talk about that. I want you to consider what it is to live in the skin of the person who experiences it. It's very real. It's very tangible. and it doesn't feel well. And there's some things we got to change, and we can only change them by having a want to change the game. Before we go, I want to share a song with you written by Johnny Mercer and Henry Mancini in a beautiful rendition by the Aliens of Oakwood University. This song was written in 1961 in the heart of the civil rights era, a time when there were marches and diverse protests being held, resisting pervasive oppression and inequity. There was a display of endurance, tenacity, and unexplainable resilience. The song looks to the future and the past simultaneously, and it represents time and the journey from start to finish. That was our then. Our then has a long history, and then is now, and we're still here. A look at the young people who are part of this song as our hope for tomorrow. So I want you to stick around for a moment. It's just a short rendition. We hope you enjoy it. And after the song is concluded, that'll be the end for us. We thank you so much for joining us. Can you just stand by for Moon River?
Hey, Anita, before we go, a special young lady signed on, my mother,
Oh,
Tanya Reynolds. Hey, Mom, she's in New Jersey. I'm my mom's, only baby. I get all of my work ethic. I remember my mom used to work at the Trentonian and so many other things, and she is part of my inspiration of who I am. And I just love you so much, Miss Tanya Reynolds Stafford. Thank you, Mom.
thank you, Ms. Stafford. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you, Jahmeer, for the introduction of Mom, and thank you for being a part of our platform today. I'm going to stay connected to you. You'll be hearing more from me, and for everybody joining, even from Working Solutions, thank you for being a part of this effort. Have a great evening.
Thank you.